Okay. So I hope you had a little bit of rest after coffee and you're not too tired before lunch. This panel is actually a continuation of the panel we just had. We still continue inferring on the findings of the report, but in this panel we see it more the two perspectives connected, the economic development and the pathway to Europe. Not that one is not connected with the other, actually they're very well interlinked, but it puts two tasks in front of us, and both are costly, and then we need certain priorities ahead. Before we continue with the group, I mean, stories are good. I will share a story because I got inspired by this Singapore thing. And I think there are lessons one can learn from smaller countries that made it with the support of other funds. I remember myself as a student, I was offered a scholarship training in Taiwan for 2 months. And what I remember most, because you know, when you go to this exotic place, you don't remember all of the training you receive. But one picture I have in my mind, it was a picture of a big China and a small Taiwan. And then the message that was given to us as Kosovar students was, don't be afraid of your big enemy. And then I was thinking, our enemy is not that big. No, it's only 3 times our country. I remember this picture of Dragon China. And then I think we play on that card way too often, thinking that, or justifying, or becoming complacent for misachievements, non-achievements. And I don't think that's a way to go. Now, how does this connect, how Taiwan connects to integration? Maybe that not that much to any integration, but to a support they received. They did receive international support, but then they knew how they used it. And I think this is what this panel is about. So let us see how Kosovo can first get ready for integrating in EU, but on the way to getting ready for this integration, how we make use of any support we receive, be it financial or non-financial. Now I will introduce the panelists. We have Maria here, Maria Esnos, the advisor, the economic advisor of DGENEST, so the Directorate General for Enlargement and Eastern Neighborhood by European Commission. So I think very qualified to put some tasks ahead of us, some sticks and carrots. Matthias Konrad, Deputy Head of Mission of the German Embassy in Pristina. German Embassy was pivotal to supporting the economy and not only of Kosovo, not only in terms of financial support, but a lot in growing capacities via different funds like KfW, GAZ, different organizations, German organizations gave a lot of support, and German Embassy itself. So I think there we have Nina Vujanovic, she's joining us online, an affiliate fellow from Bruegel, a researcher, probably giving us some insights of other economies like Kosovo and how they navigated in their pathway to European integration. And last but not least, Zoran Aralica, senior researcher and from the Institute of Economics in Zagreb, and a close friend of Riinvest Institute, as I understand. Okay. Myself, I'm here as a board member of the Institute and as a long-term intern of an institute. I consider myself a forever intern of an institute, reading reports of the institute. Otherwise, in my day-to-day life, I'm a manager of a bank, I'm a CEO of a bank, a local bank here in Kosovo. But I think the Institute is not only a driving force of supporting the academia, supporting the policy making in Kosovo. I think it is one of the guilty institutions for building a very resilient financial sector. You have seen, if we have a thing that is flawless, and Alban, you skipped it because it's flawless. As an academic, he only speaks of flaws. A banking sector in Kosovo was supported by Riinvest, and I'll tell you how. We recruited, I was one of, let's say, the founders of the banking sector in Kosovo, with the first bank joining in, being established, the first commercial bank established in Kosovo. And I remember back then when we wanted to recruit students, we looked at the reports of Riinvest and we invited all these fellows. A lot of them manage banks nowadays, and some of them are sitting in this room. And I think that is one of the sources. So yeah, Professor, you trained us well. Now we will go to the panel. I will go straight to the Maria, because I think it is important that you guide us through how ready do you think Kosovo is, as we speak, for EU integration? What are the tasks that lie ahead? And what do you consider are the key priorities?
Thank you very much, Mimosa. I'm delighted to be here and celebrate this anniversary. To your questions, the European Commission makes a very detailed report once a year, a country report looking at the political and economic development in all the candidate countries over the last year. So that's very rich for those who want to have more details. I just like to highlight 5 obstacles that I find particularly important to address. And I would say a high administrative burden. Although there have been some progress recently, there are still barriers that are problematic for private sector development. Number 2, access to finance is limited. Number 3, the informal sector is still sizable. And this is bad for several reasons, because this way you lose out on revenues for your budget that could be used for many useful things. You discourage investments and hinder further business development. Number 4, as many of you have talked about this morning, the educational system does not equip students with the skills that they need to succeed in the labor market. Nor does it doesn't allow the companies to find the labor force they need. And despite efforts that we recognize that has been made to improve vocational training and education, there is still low participation, high unemployment, and especially among women and youth. You all know this. And as a number 5, I would like to mention the supply of energy, which is unreliable and insufficient to meet the growing demand. And this, of course, also then represents a cost for business. So these would be my maybe top 5. But I would also like to say that Kosovo is working quite hard to overcome many of these obstacles, including in the reforms that is outlined now in the recent reform agenda under the growth plan for the Western Balkans. I think that this growth plan really offers a very good opportunity to significantly speed up reforms and growth. And I think this is something that this institute should study for maybe for next year's come together. Study the growth plan for the Western Balkans and the adjacent reform agendas that all the countries, bar Bosnia, which have not succeeded, have actually worked out. Because I would say that this growth plan is really a game changer. The background is that the horrible, unlawful invasion of Ukraine, which made them apply for membership, and Moldova as well, and we made them candidate countries. And then we realized we really have to reinvigorate the accession process also with the Western Balkans. And that's when the Commission proposed this growth plan, and it was adopted super quickly by EU member states who realized that yes, we need to reinvigorate our accession process. And with this, we have also a so-called reform facility with 6 million euros. 6 billion euros. And the funding will be dispersed depending on, or it's conditional on, the implementation of reforms. And this, I think, is smart. That's the carrot and stick you talked about, maybe. And the funding as such is not linked to the cost of reforms, because some reforms may be not expensive at all to implement, but may be politically difficult or sensitive. But that's why we have this budget support. If you do X, Y, Z, you get, the following amounts of money. And I really think that this is an opportunity that must not be wasted, because now EU enlargement is high on the political agenda. I mean, the window is open. Let's really use this opportunity.
Maybe just as a follow-up question.
Yes?
Compared to other countries competing for the same budget, how ready are we to absorb, and what part of it? Because I guess other countries have obstacles as well.
Yes, well, when it comes to absorption capacity, I mean, in general, of course, this is a very good question, and it is something that many countries struggle with, because you have to have the right structures in place. You are handling EU taxpayers' money, so we don't want any scandals. So, for example, right now we have stopped the flow of money to Albania, some agriculture projects, because there is a scandal. I don't know exactly the details, but just an example. We have to be very careful when we handle this money. But this is also why right now we have different projects under IPA, and we have cross-border projects where we cooperate so that countries like Kosovo can learn how to implement projects according to EU standards, learning by doing gradually. It's very important to build up this administrative capacity.
Yeah, that's very informative, and quite a big chunk of tasks on our plate. As a manager, I tend to look at what would be the priority, but I think these are all priorities. Maybe we have to go back to old Peter Drucker and look what are our posteriorities, so that us first maybe look what we should not do, and then the things that have to be done will be sorted out. Because maybe there is an engagement, as you say, on things that should not be done, and left as a posteriority, and then they die on their own. But yes, I see. We see the message, and I think the Institute got the message as well. We do study in the Institute the reports. We study them a lot. We look at them, and they help. Not only EU or relations with the EU as a whole, but the relations with every individual EU country matter. So there we think that where we can capitalize a lot is on bilateral relations, and there I come to you, Mr. Vice Ambassador, let's say. What do you think are the key areas of bilateral cooperation between Kosovo and Germany where we could capitalize, having in mind large diaspora, Kosovo diaspora in Germany, having in mind the need of this country for your system of Fach training, or I don't even know the English word for it, the on-job training, let's say. And in general, having in mind what would be the interests of Germany in this relationship, and what would be the benefits Kosovo could get from there. And we know as this is bilateral, you get trained workers, or you don't even need to get them. You train them and they work from here. It would be cheaper. At least housing is solved. You see our construction business is booming. No problem with housing. Everybody has a house. So one issue less. So I bet you would pay them less. So any idea that direction?
Thank you very much, Mimosa. Prime Minister Kurti, Acting Prime Minister Kurti keeps saying Ausbildung, using the German word actually, so I tend to do the same. First of all, let me thank you very much, and let me congratulate you, Riinvest Institute. It's a tremendous path that you've been on, and we heard many things and saw many things this morning. It's truly inspiring, and I've been here only for 3 years, so a tenth of your history, but I can truly say that the cooperation in these 3 years has been phenomenal, and I want to congratulate you and thank you for the excellent cooperation, the discussions that we've had, the papers I've read from you. And so it's a pleasure and an honor to have been invited to join you this today. When I prepared for today's discussion, I looked again also at the coalition treaty that our new government, we do have a new government. We hope for Kosovo to have a new government as soon as possible. I felt a bit like a boring German bureaucrat when I thought, excellent, we continue on that very same path. So there's a large chunk of continuity in what we're doing here in Kosovo, in the Western Balkans. But there's an element, I think, let's say, geopolitical, geoeconomic element that really puts that in a different perspective and puts a different pressure on all of us in order to be effective and in order to deliver. And I think that is really a game changer for many of the things that we're doing. And Maria also alluded to that when it comes to enlargement. So what I want to talk about briefly is a story of opportunities, missed opportunities, potential, and really a call for each of us doing their respective homework. So many of the things that I had on my little sheet of paper were mentioned earlier today, but when it comes to 1, 2, 3 examples from our experience here. We have been engaged here for over 25 years by now through the agencies that were mentioned, GIZ, KfW, and also our German Economic Chamber that has over 200 member companies. I think when you look at data, we tend to forget when we talk about missed opportunities, we tend to forget how far we have jointly come, how far Kosovo has come, and you just need to look at how, I don't know, electricity supply in the Dukagjin region has changed in order to see how far we have come jointly. And that's truly a success story with a lot of support from internationals jointly with Kosovo. And whenever we have German companies that come here, I'm head of our economic section, so companies come here, talk to us, and I always tell them, you've made it here, my job is over, my job is done. You've done the most difficult, important step, you've actually come for yourself to see. Now I let Kosovo do the job of charming you, of inviting you, and in 99% of the cases, people have such a positive impression and see the potential, but it really does take that first step to come. 3 companies I want to mention. Sovi, the biggest foreign direct investment in Kosovo, wind park outside of, so Bajgora, not far from Mitrovica, a wind park. That addresses one of the key issues that was mentioned also, reliable energy supply. And that is when we also speak about the prospects for the ICT sector, they do very much rely on as all other businesses do, but they do very much rely on not just the supply of energy, but also of clean energy. We will have CBAM entering into force. That is a task, and I'm referring to the energy strategy that Kosovo has set for himself in quite an impressive, ambitious goal of increasing the level of renewable energy sources. There's a lot to be done. And Professor, I very much enjoyed your remarks about the ICT sector as not being bound by many of the limitations and difficulties that, let's say, manufacturing, for example, faces. But energy is still one element that keeps very much kind of rooted in the ground here, or in the sunny air, or in the windy air. A second company that recently was opened up, Munda, it's a car manufacturer. And that's a fantastic story. They've come to Kosovo. They've opened up a plant here. They've specifically picked Kosovo and did not go to other places, despite them looking at various options in the neighborhood, so to speak. And that's truly a success story in the sense that it combines manufacturing, but also it brings people that have highly paid jobs, software engineers, and many of them have actually trained in Germany as part of a educational program. And that brings me to the issue of migration just very quickly. Migration is a problem, is a challenge, is an issue, and many smart things were said before, so I will not repeat all of that. But what I find striking is the connection that the diaspora of Kosovo, and we have over 500,000 in Germany, the strong connection that the diaspora has in Kosovo, and is willing and actively engaged in not only remittances, but physically coming back and enriching Kosovo, the private sector, and all of that. And maybe we should think more on kind of return of migration, as in return on investment, than just brain drain, because at least for Kosovo, that is potential that is not lost, because the connections are so strong. And I don't know of many other places where this connection between the diaspora and the home country is so strong. Many of the companies that are actually part of our chamber have some element in Germany, so these links are very strong. One more thing I want to mention, ITP. It's a tech park in Prizren. That is a joint venture by the Kosovan and the German government. Both of us are putting taxpayers' money on the table to transform what used to be a German K4 base into a tech park. And it's become quite successful. It's over 40 companies now. It's soon to have a hospital by an Italian company that is probably going to be one of the best, if not the best, in Kosovo. And when we think about how to, it's also a very nice example that the regions in Kosovo, the different municipalities, not everything has to happen in Pristina. And there's a lot of talent in the region that can be harnessed as well. When we come to think about what are the next steps, I think one element is integrating research and development stronger into what is there in terms of private sector development. There's lots of things to be done. And I don't want to go through all these points, but from a kind of German foreign policy approach to Kosovo, to the region, we are in a way doing the same that we have been doing for 25 years. It is supporting Kosovo in its independence, in the development of this country, of its people. We are seeing the enormous potential that it has. We have established, as member of the European Union, together with Euro-Atlantic kind of friends, partners, we have invested, let's say, enormously, and we will continue to do so. We have established the Berlin process over 10 years ago. That is another element where we are offering. We are offering, and we do need the ownership and the responsibility of the actors that are taking decisions here to make use of these offers. The growth plan, I find, is a case in point. It offers so much to the region. Now, Kosovo needs a government and a parliament to move on with that. Otherwise, the money is sitting in the bank. With Berlin process, I just want to highlight one element. Traveling ID cards with ID cards in the region. That was agreed upon in November 2022. Now, that has almost happened, but Bosnia and Kosovo have not solved this issue because of non-recognition of Bosnia and Herzegovina towards Kosovo. Now, Prime Minister Kurti took a step last year to unilaterally acknowledge and recognize ID cards from Bosnia and Herzegovina so people could move and travel with ID cards to Kosovo. And that is such a commendable step because it shows exactly that spirit that is needed. One last, sorry, I'm being very long. One last thought that I had, I mean, when we speak to German potential investors, they come here, they're interested in the region, but Kosovo is a small market ultimately. The region has a lot to offer, and when they do decide to come to the region, they want to make use of that region and all it has to offer. So reducing trade barriers and making moving of goods and people across the borders easier, that is something that is very much the DNA of the Berlin process as a step towards integration with the European Union. And so a lot is on offer. Resources might be getting scarcer, and we need to jointly make better use of what is on offer. Otherwise, we will be talking about missed opportunities again in 2028. There is an opportunity, there is potential for so much more, and that has been kind of my mainline well-being here, and I'm truly convinced that this is, that can be achieved. First.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is true. A good progress was made, one cannot neglect it. Just seeing the movie we saw before, one could see how far we came, but the steps were just too little. Continuing the same path probably makes us complacent, because 4% can make you complacent, even if you manage a business. It's a good return, but it's a good return for a big business. It's a good return for a big country. We're a small country, we need to find a way of making big steps. Probably we need to shake ourselves, and here I come to Zoran. What should we make really different? I mean, here really I'm talking as a manager, because we as managers sometimes when we see good path, you create a cash cow and you just milk it and you like it. But I would agree with Professor Jeff, we have to really rethink, let's say, our country's business model and make it grow faster, innovate. So I'm coming back to you, what would you suggest is the best
I think that everyone in Western Balkans, including Croatia, which is the latest part of EU member since 2013, needs to think new ways. This new ways means which way I can contribute to the European Union. We cannot wait guys from the Germany, guys from the USA to put some money to pay for all, how to say, fiesta, holidays, I don't know what, because these people waiting concrete solution. How do you contribute to the Germany, for example? This is a 35, 45. Which way you can help them? On which way? Excellent. We saw that there are increasing number of Kosovian exporters. This is a good sign. So which way these companies can contribute to the European market? This is I would like to say, a shift in the thinking. Kosovo and the whole Western Balkans, I would like to say, need concrete policy action, because we are living in, I would like to say, mental silos. Politicians, they think on own way. They think about very, very, how to say, strict way, do not observe in general, do not observe what's happening in the entrepreneurship, in civil society, in Western Balkans. They don't take action which connect, in general, there are exemptions, of course. Then they do not take action which collect, how to say, potential business sector, potential of creative people, education, and other sectors in one concrete action. I would like to say, I would like to provoke all audience. Does anyone know what mean Pristina innovation ecosystems? No. It's a hard question because I don't know what means Zagreb innovation ecosystems too. I came from the Zagreb. I'm arrived from the Zagreb. But I started to work on a project with Zagreb Innovation Center in the topic of knowledge-intensive entrepreneurship to research, to analyze how knowledge is created in the small medium enterprises in Zicer, which hold about 100 companies. So if we talk about transformative policy means you need to create impact. Without impact, you are dead. Without, I would like to say, I saw today tremendous, how to say, effects, tremendous activities of Riinvest. But in 2030, in the near future, these tremendous effects will not, how to say, worth anything. You need action now and say, okay, you have a problem with energy. Which startup in Kosovo help to the Kosovo to solve this energy? In this way, connect challenges, connect activities, and solve the problems. It sounds easy, but in practice it's harder, but I think it could be good guidelines.
Thank you. I mean, you did study transformative
Yes,
energy.
this is my occupation, yes.
And so your advice would be that we focus, if there was a sector where you say Kosovo should focus, because we discussed in the prior session, the ICT sector. It's true, it is an important one, but then one has to bear in mind that you don't see any of the big giants here. So what Kosovo ICT is exporting is first-level support. It's not, we should not cheat ourselves that we're producing something big here, and then we're competing with other nations in the region, like Serbia, like Albania, having actually even bigger indices of digitalization. They have passed us. So should we still stick to it or find something else?
Regarding digitalization, use of ICT, I think, and in case of sectors, I think that Kosovo and every Western Balkans countries need to concentrate much more efforts on concrete products and concrete services, not on concrete sectors. These ICT sectors in Kosovo will be viable in case if we can support other parts of Kosovo economy and other part of, for example, Bosnia economy, or make some type of regional connection. In this way, we are too small that we talk about sectors. Sectors require 15,000 people, 20,000 people. Croatia has lost its competition in a lot of area in that sense. So Croatia with 4 times larger than, 3 times larger than the Kosovo, needs to concentrate on concrete products, on concrete service if they want to the challenge to the European Union. But problems still left on sectoral level. For example, energy, supplyment of energy in Kosovo. Regarding this latest paper about technological transformation, the key message that new employment are really connected with the use, with the equipment of digital technology. So younger people are really, according to this model produced for Croatia in the period 2009-2019, these young people are connected with the creating new productivity, which is a key question of the whole event today, because stressed a few times that low level of productivity. So this and other maybe very, very important lesson, try to analyze combined technology, not only digital, not only ICT. Try to look in terms of ecosystems, in terms of what they really need. For example, some issues can be achieved by market, some issues can be achieved only by policy. For example, if you look Croatia real estate sectors, they are in 2019 they have same level of use of cloud as German counterparts. Why? Real estate sectors in Croatia really developed, and these companies budget these issues, cloud, and they, how to say, catch up their counterparts with Germany. It's not political philosophy that you need to think. It's only market who push these companies on the level of catching up. So some issues can be reached by market, some issues can be reached by policy action, which I stressed attention a few minutes ago.
Good. So what I get from here is that the policymakers create the minimal infrastructure, and then the market does its job. So if it is the problem with energy, coming back to the tasks, it remains a mixed task, but mostly policymakers supporting, even like nowadays we cannot yet put our extra energy produced by solar panels on the grid and sell it. So that needs to be done by policymakers. High administrative burden, it's again a policymaker issue, so it just... Informal sector, it's again better policing. Education system, it's a mixed task, but mostly a government job. I don't think the market would sort it out by itself. Vocational training would be done provided by businesses that come. And then, when we touch the supply of energy, so I think we come back to the initial remarks. We forgot about Nina or not? Is Nina online?
I'm here. I'm online. Can you see me and can you hear me?
And Nina, I can hear you. I can see you. Yes.
Super.
So
super. That's a good start. That's a good start.
So Nina, now I will take advantage as you're not here in the room, and you're not bounded by Kosovan environment, and we'll ask you another more broader question. Given global economic slowdown and geopolitical uncertainties, how can a small economy like Kosovo take advantage? I will not say what is the risk of it, but how we can take advantage of the uncertainty as such.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really a great pleasure to be here on such an important event for Institute, like 30 years anniversary. I'm also very happy to see many dear and familiar faces from Staffordshire universities, from Kosovo, my dear colleagues, but also from Vienna. So yes, I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you. That's a very good question, and I would like to start by saying that times of uncertainty haven't started with Trump administration. We've been in continuous crisis ever since the global financial crisis, and in particular, disruption of global value chains is not something that has been invented as of 2025, and that we are certainly going to experience with higher tariffs and trade costs. It's been something that has been on before with China and US trade wars, for example, that were dating 7 to 8 years ago. Then also COVID pandemic pointed into direction of importance of maintaining resilient supply chains. Then we had, after aggression of Russia on Ukraine, energy sector crisis evolved, and again pointing into direction of importance of having a resilient trade. I think Kosovo, but also other Western Balkan economies, have an advantage of having a framework of CEFTA. I would like to highlight the importance of this trade bloc. Why? Because also research states that in time of rising trade costs and in time of crisis, having partnerships and trade agreements, and CEFTA is certainly multilateral trade agreements, can be a safety net, so a sort of a safety net against, and sort of can be a buffer and resilience in times of negative trade shocks, and certainly tariffs are one of those. I'm very happy that New Year Growth Plan has been mentioned, because New Year Growth Plan is truly a game changer of European Union in terms of the approach of European Union towards this region. And one aspect that has been triggered by New Year Growth Plan is actually creation of common regional market. So for the first, New Union integration is not, let me highlight, isn't supposed to directly focus on growth and prodding growth of each economics. It's really mostly about reforms. But New Year Growth Plan, for the first time, has prodded three aspects. First is higher integration of the Western Balkan 6, possible integration with EU single market, then creation of common regional market. As already explained, there is a third point that is about 6 billion package that can be released, conditional successful implementation of reform. So let me go back to the common regional market. So common regional market should be prodded further to CEFTA and Regional Cooperation Council. And I think I see a great benefit in that for not only Kosovo, but for every single Western Balkan country. I think that CEFTA is a great framework also because EU has consistently and persistently insisting on cooperation in the region, also through trade. This is something that is not going to help, this type of trade, not only going to help Kosovo maybe weather partially through the crisis, but will also help its EU integration process. Now here in Bruegel, together with Armin Steinbach and Anna Fiore and myself, we recently wrote a very long paper, I believe it will be published in 2-3 weeks. It's still in the editorial and revision process, but we are getting there. But we analyzed the benefits of CEFTA for each Western Balkan economy, and in fact, we really indeed did find that not all potentials were fully used. For instance, we found that much of the trade relations were really run by single partner countries. So regional trade, instead of being diversified among all 6 countries of the Western Balkan plus Moldova, it has mostly been dominantly run by trade between 2 countries that have been traditionally trade partners. So I think there is a potential of diversifying this, not only for Kosovo, but for other countries as well. It is also important for policymakers in Kosovo and other Western Balkan economies to use this framework in the next couple of years and to really prioritize ratifying agreements from CEFTA. So I think this is also a point that is important to be addressed and prioritized by policymakers. So yes, I think I will stop here. And if you have any questions, maybe follow-up questions, maybe I can go. Yeah.
I have one follow-up question, and I have not read your study on CEFTA, but now I'm curious to understand what exactly were the obstacles. So how much of the findings you have relate to policymaking and how much is to the legacies of doing business? Because the example you have seems more like legacy of the past, businesses not innovating, rather than policy stopping something, because the framework in this case, I think the framework is there, just not being utilized.
Well,
wrong.
Yes, I mean, such a good question. Thanks a lot. We do have, I mean, the study is not out there, but it will be, and we do actually analyze what were the obstacles of CEFTA. So even though CEFTA replaced 32 bilateral agreements, in a way it was really efficient. There are studies showing that CEFTA promoted growth. I mean, you cannot disdain that. But, and it also abolished the tariffs on goods. There were many non-tariff, there are still many non-tariff barriers between countries, like waiting at the border of each Western Balkan country is just huge. If you look at the Logistics Performance Index of World Bank, which encompasses it's not only a measure of waiting at the border, but it's also the measure of how efficiently a good can be tracked cross-border, how efficient the cross-border checks are, and various other things. So it's a very complex measure. All the Western Balkans countries really like Big Fine. Interestingly, North Macedonia is slightly better off, and we find that this is particularly great because thanks to Green Lanes initiative or transport network, which are meant to actually facilitate trade of certain goods cross-border. And these green lanes have been operating, for instance, between North Macedonia and Greece and North Macedonia and Serbia. So at least there is some light ahead, because these green lane initiatives are supposed to be implemented across the entire Western Balkan 6, and this is something that is in the pipeline. So I expect in the future some of this will be reduced. But it's necessary to simplify cross-border checks, for instance. I mean, still in the Western Balkans, you have double cross-border checks. I mean, it's absolutely necessary for policymakers to sit at the table and make these procedures simplified. Then another point which we study is that we find that the regulatory framework just differs. And this is an obstacle to trade. Regulatory framework within each country defines the rule of the game for business, but it differs in each Western Balkan economies. Also, all of these countries are catching up with the EU, and they are aligning the regulatory framework with the EU acquis. But they're doing that at a different speed, because not every country in the Western Balkan is at a different level of the EU integration process. So what the result of all of that is that firms that try to export cross-Balkans have access information problem. They need to, they have to familiarize themselves first with differences existing in the other countries' regulatory framework and comply accordingly. So I think there is much room for improvement, and I think this is really in the policy domain. Like making business simplified is also important indirectly for trade. And since the common regional market is being created, it's being developed, I think that efforts should be geared towards simplifying regulatory framework too. So yes, this is something that we study in our analysis, and yes, I will stop. I think you mentioned innovation, correct? Or did I?
We covered it in the other panel, and we have discussed it extensively here. Okay. So I think when it comes to innovation, we are pretty clear that that's a way ahead. But Matthias here wanted to connect to your point. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nina, thank you so much for mentioning all that you just said, because I think it's a very, very important and crucial point. Establishing the common regional market is an objective of the Berlin process. It is closely linked and tied to the EU growth plan, and we're doing our utmost to make these instruments as effective as they can be. And in last year, in fall, we had a breakthrough in a blockade of CEFTA that had been in place for years, and that was blocking a lot of regional integration. And when we looked at a study of how the region has benefited from regional integration over the past 10 years that the Berlin process has been in place, we have to be honest in that sense that all of the countries have grown economically, and Kosovo actually has done best if you compare it across the board in the region, but the trade within the region has dropped, has gone down, and that is the opposite of what we want to achieve. And I praised the government of Kosovo for taking this courageous step to recognize ID cards of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And allow me now to spray also some criticism. When we had this breakthrough on CEFTA last year, the procedures at the border were changed for cargo coming in and out of the country on the borders with Serbia. Now, that has created ultimately queues at the border, and that runs counter to what we are trying to achieve, namely erasing barriers of trade and easing the transport of goods and of people. And we continue to say there are steps, technical steps that can be taken in order to facilitate this cross-border transport of goods. And I want to underline that it is ultimately Kosovan producers that take the toll in this. It is mainly Kosovan producers that were importing raw materials from Serbia that were going back and forth over the border before these new changed mechanisms were put into place. So it is to the detriment of the Kosovan private sector in that very aspect, and this is contrary to what we're trying to achieve, and I think where the potential for this region also lies, and that is reducing the barriers to trade.
Absolutely.
So I think we're coming to an end of this panel.
I am also grateful that Nina brought up the other pillars of the growth plan that I did not mention, namely the gradual introduction into the EU single market. I think it's good, so you don't have to wait until really exceeding. We can start already now, making it more smoother accession. And of course the encouragement of more of a regional common market. And I'm also happy to note this breakthrough that Matthias is talking about on CEFTA, because for many years civil servants had actually worked out pretty good proposals and they were blocked at political level. And now I feel there is a new dynamism, there is a new atmosphere that I'm very happy about. But lots of little things you have to work out. For example, if you look at these green lanes to make border crossings smoother, you have to coordinate working hours, for example, because it doesn't matter if a lorry gets through on one side and they are not working on the other side of the border, then you're still stuck. So all kinds of little things that you have to be worked out. But it can be done. And again, the growth plan is really a game changer. So let's use it. And remember that enlargement has been a tremendous economic success story, and this economic success can be repeated again. We looked, but economists in the Commission looked very carefully at what happened some 20 years ago in a 300-page report, which I will not, of course, talk about too much now, but it is fantastic. It is fantastic that those countries that joined some 20 years ago have come very, very far in closing the economic gap in almost, in only one generation. It's clear that the investments they made in reforms then is the best investments they ever made. Huge returns. And we looked very much at the interplay between economic reform, institutional reform, and social development. And it's a complex relationship, but it's very, very clear that institutional reform and economic growth go hand in hand. That is why it is so super important to work at these, what we call the fundamentals: rule of law, fighting corruption, independent judges. All this is actually super important for the economic development. And therefore, I'm so happy that the next panel after lunch is dedicated to institutional reform. Wasn't that an elegant bridge to the next panel?
thank you very much for the participation and for very valuable insights. And if we want to wrap it up, yes, integration, as evidenced even in the report, goes hand in hand with economic growth. The countries that did join the Union did accelerate in their growth and actually reduce the gap, because the name of the game here was how do we come to reducing the gap. And this moving from this middle income trap will be made possible by perhaps step-by-step regional integration, and then with an ultimate goal of joining the EU. And the faster the first one happens, the faster the second, I guess. And the more assurances that we all go there together, the easier it gets. If the audience has questions, I think there was somebody with a microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This was a very interesting discussion and reflections, I think. I have a question for the representative of the German embassy. I'm an academic, so I'll try to be diplomatic, but if I'm not, I apologize in advance. So what we've seen recently, and as the report says, that there is a large, and AU said as well, that there is a large diaspora, Albanian diaspora and Kosovo diaspora in Germany. And of course, this, we appreciate the openness and Germany opening the markets for citizens or workers from the, especially skilled workers from the Balkans. And and of course you mentioned a lot of programs that you're working with in Kosovo for its further development. Of course, being an Albanian as well, Albania has seen a lot of skilled workers. The market is easy there. I have my cousins who are both doctors who live in Germany now. My question is Germany trying to do something more in order to help? Because this has created a large gap in our countries and in Kosovo. So is there any way or any part, are you partnering with the Kosovo's government to try and bridge this gap? So, you know, to offset the negative consequences of people leaving from Kosovo has caused. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a very relevant one, and I think being diplomatic doesn't mean not to be clear. I think it's the art of being clear. I think we're actually trying to do both, and we are in Germany in high demand of labor force, and that's not a secret. And we are also not the only ones with an aging population all over Europe, and it's quite a competition. And so there is certainly this demand, and with the cultural, the language proximity, or the kind of the degree to which many people here in the region do speak German and have some sort of a cultural proximity, affinity, we have certainly benefited enormously from that. At the same time, what I've described, what we've been doing for 25 years, is also to contribute to conditions here in Kosovo and in the region that ultimately can be good arguments for people to stay, or maybe for people to come back. And when you look at, and that was why I was talking about the return of migration at some point, we will not be, it's in nobody's objective, I think, to stop people from going, but it's about creating conditions that make people want to stay. I find it quite impressive when I talk here to people from the ICT sector. They tell me there is no brain drain in IT. Then we continue talking. You have family, yeah, kids, yeah. How old are they? Yeah, they're kind of 5, 6. I'm coming now to a point where I'm actually thinking harder than ever before of actually leaving for good, at least for the time being, for my children, because I want them to have an educational system that is better and different, and a health system that I can rely on. And I think these are fair arguments. And I think there is so much to be done that, that can contribute to creating the conditions for people to stay or to come back. I mentioned this earlier, I find it really impressive how strong the ties are. And when you talk to people, I mean, who would want to pay high rent in Munich and not be close to her family? When I talk to people here, there is such a strong connection, and I cannot blame them, and the coffee is better, frankly speaking. And I will speak for 2 more minutes because this is a crucial point. It was mentioned before, but the women participation in the labor market, that is such a waste of such potential. And that has very structural reasons. I saw the figure that below 3% of children until the age of 4 attend some sort of a childcare facility. What does that mean? They need to be at home with either grandparents or parents, and that's usually the mother. That is a very structural problem that can be addressed. This potential of having below 20% of women in the labor, that is such a waste. And that has very structural reasons, and that can be addressed. That is just one element that I wanted to underline as well. So going back to your question, you're right. We are a magnet, and we are not trying to put a stop to that, but we are at the same time trying to create as good as we can conditions here, have been for 25 years by now, and we want ownership of Kosovo to do this as well. And I think that last example is one where it becomes so palpable. Thank you.
Yeah, just a short question. My name is Adrian Krasnici. I'm interested if the German embassy sort of have any data on people who actually go back to Western Balkans or Kosovo. So people who actually leave Germany after a few years spending there and bring kind of knowledge and know-how into the region. Thank you.
The very short answer is I do not. I saw a study recently by Friedrich Ebert-Stiftung. I found one element of data interesting. When you look at the people that think about migrating, the number of people that are thinking about migration for a few years maybe, but with the intention of coming back, that is increasing. And that I find promising. I do not have any good data on how many people are leaving and actually coming back.
That is produced by German Federal Employment Agency, and they have very good quality data in terms of people coming from all the regions. And the good thing is that they also have data on the qualifications they have and sectors in which they work. I think, that produces very valuable policy implications for countries of origin in this case.
I did not see any other hand rising. Any other question? Then if no, I think we may conclude this panel with the messages we already all had. Thank you for your participation, and thank you for your attendance. And thank you.